Join me, if you would, for a word of prayer today. Loving God, speak to us through our text this morning, and may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. You are a rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. These are the words to one of the most famous hymns of all time, written by English poet, clergyman, and former slave trader John Newton, reflecting upon his conversion experience that he had in the middle of a storm in the Atlantic Ocean while driving a slave ship across the sea. He prayed to God in desperation and found that not only did God show up, but God changed his life gradually over time. Over the years, these words have captured the essence of what it means to see again, to experience God's grace even when we don't deserve it, to be forgiven when we feel like we have done the unforgivable, to be loved even when we feel like we have failed to love. Grace is a free gift. We don't earn it, we don't deserve it, but it's there. We're continuing our journey through the Gospel of Mark this fall, and today we look at two different passages, one from Mark 8, one from Mark 10, where Jesus heals the blind. In chapter 8, it's the blind man at Bethsaida. In chapter 10, it's the blind man Bartimaeus. Neither one of these men could see, but once they come into contact with Jesus, they are healed. And they can see again. Healthy religion is about getting us to see things in a different way, getting us to see things that we have missed, getting us to approach life from a different perspective, getting us to see our situation, whatever it might be, as we have never seen it before. I've been reading a book by a well-known Catholic priest and spiritual leader named Richard Rohr. The book is titled Everything Belongs. And in the book he says this: we have to accept that human culture is in a hypnotic trance. We're sleepwalkers. All religious teachers have recognized that we human beings do not naturally see. We have to be taught how to see. That's what religion is for. That's why the Buddha and Jesus say with one voice, "Be awake." Rohr says we cannot attain the presence of God because we are already in the presence of God. What's absent is awareness. We're blind, but we have to learn to see. And so many of us live our lives every day, every week, just going through the motions, doing the things we do, but not paying attention to what is before us. Think about Pope Francis. Did you guys know he's been in the country this weekend? He's getting people to see things in a new light. He is lifting up humility and service, simplicity and poverty, compassion and forgiveness, peace and hope like never before. He's causing people to tear down walls and to see things in a new way. And people are responding. I wrote a piece this weekend for the paper where I said that the things in life that feed our egos are not necessarily the same things that feed our souls. The things that we think are so important in life are often the things that do not satisfy us deep down. People are restless, and restlessness is a spiritual problem. People are restless with themselves, and they're restless in their marriages, and they're restless in their jobs, and they're restless in their relationships and in their families. And so we address this restlessness in a variety of ways. We eat and we drink and we shop and we worry and we do all that in excess, but we don't address the deeper problem within. Jesus teaches us in the Sermon on the Mount that it's our motives, it's what's going on inside of our hearts and inside of our heads, it's our intentions that matter. What keeps us relevant in the marketplace is not really what gives us meaning in life. Life must be about more than work. Life must be about more than success. Life must be about more than just getting rich. Life must be about more than just climbing the social ladder. Life must be about more than always being right. Life is about seeing people and situations for what they are and not living in an illusion that's not reality. Think about Jesus' encounter with the man at Bethsaida. The healing process happens in stages. It doesn't happen all at once. Jesus puts saliva on the man's eyes, and the man can partially see. He says, "I see people, but they look like trees." And then Jesus puts his hands on his eyes, and he can see clearly. A whole new world for this man. Think about Jesus' encounter with Bartimaeus. Mark tells us that Jesus and his disciples are in Jericho, and as they are leaving the town, there was a large crowd following and looking on. And Jesus had become a well-known rabbi by this point, and so he's now on his way to Jerusalem at this part of Mark's gospel. And as he's walking along, suddenly there's a blind beggar named Bartimaeus who heard that Jesus was coming, and he senses that Jesus is coming, and he yells out, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And there were many people who tried to quiet him down, ignore him, push him away, but he only gets louder, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And Jesus hears the cry of the man. He calls him forward and he asks him, "What do you want me to do for you?" And Bartimaeus says, "My teacher, let me see again." And Mark then tells us that Jesus responds by saying, "Go, your faith has made you well." And immediately he regains his sight and he follows him along the way. For centuries now, scholars, theologians have debated whether this was a miraculous healing, or was it just a metaphor for learning to see again? How should we understand either of these texts in Mark's gospel? Whatever it was, we do know that there were two men who were blind, and they were able to see again. Let's think about Jesus' encounter with Bartimaeus. Think about it as it relates to our own lives. What do we take from this passage? A couple of things. First, there was the sheer persistence of Bartimaeus. Nothing was going to stop him from coming face to face with Jesus because he knew that Jesus could make him well. Others tried to deter him. Others tried to keep him away, to silence him. But Bartimaeus persisted. He would not be denied. He had a desperate desire to see the man from Nazareth who could heal him and make him whole. Well, what about us? Do we have that same longing and desire to encounter Jesus Christ, to come face to face with the one who can heal us and make us whole still today? Do we put that kind of faith and effort to meet Jesus in our own lives, or are we just apathetic and indifferent? Secondly, when Jesus calls him forward, Bartimaeus' response was immediate. Mark tells us that he threw off his cloak and he sprang up and he came to Jesus. He didn't wait. He didn't hesitate. He responded right away. What about us? Do we respond to Christ in moments like that? Do we come immediately when Jesus calls us, or do we say, hold on, I've got some other things going on in my life. I'll come later. I'll come when I'm not busy. I'll come when I have time. Leave me alone, Jesus. I'm tied up right now. Third, Bartimaeus knew exactly what he wanted. He wanted his sight. He wanted to see again. And yet many of us don't know what we want from Jesus. We don't even know what's wrong. We don't know what we're asking for. And if we don't know what's wrong in our own lives, then how can we ask Christ to fix it? Socrates is the one who said that the unexamined life is a life that's not worth living. And many of us are afraid to do self-examination because we know that if we look at our situations, if we look at our shortcomings, if we look into the mirror and see our character flaws, that will be too much. But if we can't name what's wrong, if we can't name what needs to be healed or fixed, then how can we ask Christ to heal us? Fourth, Bartimaeus had a strong faith. He didn't fully understand Jesus, but he trusted him. And he knew that he could be made well. He didn't exactly know how Jesus would restore his sight, but he knew that he could. How strong is our faith? Do we really believe that Jesus can heal us, help us, get us through whatever it is that we're dealing with in our lives right now? Or are we skeptical and ambivalent, cynical and hesitant? Do we say that we have faith, but really when it comes down to it, we don't live like it? Are we willing to let things go? And lastly, as soon as Bartimaeus regains his sight, Mark tells us that he followed Jesus. He was healed, but rather than selfishly going on his own way, he followed Jesus. He finished with loyalty and faithfulness to the one who had healed him. Too many people in our world today want something from Jesus. They want something from the church. And then once they get it, they disappear. They go on their way. I need the church so I can get baptized. Then I'm gone. I need the church so I can get married. And then I'm gone. I need the church to dedicate my child, then I'm gone. I need the church to do my mother's funeral, but then I'm gone. Too many people in this consumer culture are only interested in what they can get out of the church and out of the faith, and they are not as interested in what they can give back and in what Christ might be calling them to do. Many of us are also guilty of living our lives as though we are just blind to the needs of others, and blind to the wonders that are all around us. We just go through the motions, and we do the same thing day after day, and we don't see the beauty and the miracles that are all around us. But like Bartimaeus, we need Christ to come and open our eyes to see life in a new perspective, to see life differently. And so maybe what we need to do is write a prayer. And not everybody's prayer will be the same, but we all need a prayer. Perhaps the prayer sounds something like this: open our eyes to see the beauty of all creation, and open our eyes to appreciate our families, our spouses, our friends, and loved ones. Open our eyes to the good that is done by people each and every day, and not just to the evil and the bad things that happen in this world. Open our eyes to the church that seeks to bring God's kingdom here to earth. Help us to participate and do our part. Open our eyes to the world that we can work to meet needs with love. Open our eyes to love other people, not just sometimes or when it's convenient, but all the time, even when it's hard. Open our eyes to the peace that passes understanding, the peace that Christ came to bring, the peace that is not of this world, thank goodness, the peace that starts in our own hearts. Open our eyes that we can live in hope, that there is nothing in life that can separate us from the love of God. Hope that the future will be better. Hope that we can make it through the most hopeless of situations. Open our eyes that we can love people who are different and who see differently from us. Open our eyes to not live in a hurry, always rushing around and overbooking ourselves and thinking about what's coming next and forgetting to cherish the moment and the stage of life that we are in. Open our eyes that we might forgive other people, even those that have hurt us. Open our eyes that we can enjoy this wonderful gift called life and not take it for granted. Just like Bartimaeus, we need to have our sight restored. And just like the man at Bethsaida, that restoration might not take place in one stage, and that's okay. We need our sight restored because for whatever reason we have become blind, and we need to learn to see again, to see anew, to see with a new perspective. I want to close with a piece that I heard my father use growing up, and he got it from a Sunday school teacher at our home church who taught for many, many years, and the piece is called "The World Is Mine." I'll leave you with these words. Today upon a bus, I saw a girl with golden hair. She seemed so happy, and I envied her, and I wished that I were so fair. I watched her as she rose to leave and saw her hobble down the aisle. She had one leg and wore a crutch, but as she passed, a smile. Oh God, forgive me when I whine. I have two legs, and the world is mine. Later on, I bought some sweets. The boy who sold them had such charm. I thought I'd stop and talk a while. If I were late, it would do no harm. And as we talked, he said, "Thank you, sir. You've been really so kind. It's nice to talk to folks like you. You see," he said, "I'm blind. Oh God, forgive me when I whine. I have two eyes, and the world is mine." Later, walking down the street, I met a boy with eyes so blue. But he stood and watched the other kids play. It seemed he knew not what to do. I paused, and then I said, "Why don't you join the others, dear?" But he looked straight ahead without a word, and then I knew he couldn't hear. Oh God, forgive me when I whine. I have two ears, and the world is mine. With legs to take me where I'll go, with eyes to see the sunsets glow, with ears to hear all I should know. Oh God, forgive me when I whine. I'm blessed indeed, and the world is mine. God, help us to open our eyes and to see things we've never seen before. Amen.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved